L'chaim, man.
Chin chin.
What are we cheersing to?
The glorious thing called life.
I love it. What makes it glorious for you?
Surprisingly enough, aging.
Go on.
You would think the downsides would outweigh the upsides. At least that's how it's portrayed in culture, in a sense.
Okay.
It glorifies youth. But actually, experience can buy you freedom. And what's sweeter than freedom?
Love.
Yeah, but that's the thing. To actually love someone, not be infatuated or in love, you have to be mature for that, for most people.
What do you mean? I mean, I think I know what you mean, but tell me.
I mean, you can have a crush, right? This hormonal whatever mealstorm. That's how you pronounce it?
Sure.
Sure.
Maelstrom.
It's great. You enjoy the ride. It's very exciting. It's very dramatic. And then it's over. And what then? Okay. Then it's another person and you have to have a relationship, a proper relationship. And if you want a relationship founded on love, you have to be either very lucky or actually work on it. Okay. Yeah. And I think the basic recipe for love is, being generous. And that's very hard for children, because our culture is about me. I buy stuff. I consume. I have choice. I can pick. And that's like orthogonal to love. Love is about somebody else. It's selfless.
I don't even know why I have an urge to argue with you. Like I love.
You certainly do. No, you certainly do. That's interesting.
No. I
that's if this were a therapy session, that would be like bam on the money. Okay. We can start working from here.
Let's go. All right. No. So I have the urge to argue with you because like I naturally try to find the flaw in anyone's arguments. I think.
Sure.
But I obviously can't deny that everything you've said I agree with. The only thing I would add, I suppose, not disagree with, but I would add is that there is an individual component to love because you transform yourself for the sake of this other person, for their happiness, say. Like, when you...
Do you mean in the sense that we couldn't love just any person randomly off the street? Of course.
No. Of course. That's also tough,
Well, it's like what they say about, vocation, right? Sure, talent helps, but hard work.
Yes. Right.
So it's the same thing. You need to have that core. The equivalent of talent in this scenario would be like basic attraction, compatibility, whatever.
Just the capacity to love. Sorry, capacity to love.
Sure, but the capacity to love is a personal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the other person. Some of it also
but someone's got to do the loving. Someone has to do the work.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Of course. But the object of your love has to be appealing to you to some extent. I mean, you can't just construct this.
Yeah.
But, in terms of percentages, like how much is imminent and how much is work or construction, that's a tricky question because it's about dynamics, right?
Also,
going from infatuation,
right,
being in love to love. So one of the things that can happen is that you, in a sense, find reasons to fall out of love from your loved one. That's a very common dynamic. There's this, woman, writer, Amalia Rosenblum, she writes in Haaretz. She has like this blog about um, therapy,
Yeah.
and she talks a lot about couples dynamics. And I think anybody who's been in a long relationship can realize, by the way, not necessarily like with a partner, just any long relationship.
Okay.
It sort of calcifies into roles, and then you end up like doing the same dance over and over again. You kind of, if it grows sour, you feel like a puppet.
Hmm.
Like you get mad, you get hurt, whatever, and you've done this a zillion times, and yet you're doing it again, and you can't seem to
Yeah.
break the cycle.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the name of the therapist or the scholar whose approach she was presenting, but exactly the point was that you sort of this is a manifestation of the process in which you try to make yourself fall out of love with the other side to protect yourself from being hurt.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
and I like it. It makes sense. You know, we're doing this to ourselves because, like, sure, you know, across time, like 10, 20 years, 30 years, people can change so much that they're not interesting or as interesting to one another. Sure. But a lot of times I think that person you fell in love with is still there,
Hmm.
but you're just not meeting them or spending time with them anymore. You're just doing the dance of he said, she said, you did, your fault, my fault, this, that, more or less.
So what they that in that scenario people stop seeing the what like the spark within the person. It's just another person.
Well, so
That's kind of a weird thing to go away about defending yourself from potential harm. I'm not saying you're wrong, or I'm just it's such a strange.
so it's very, you know, sad and like the epitome of being human that we will kill ourselves in order to spare ourselves from like aversive feelings.
Mm,
You know, think about drugs or um I don't know. You can think of, I'm sure you can think about a lot of examples.
but people overeat, right? If
Sure,
they're yeah
sure, sure. We can
yeah
damage our health or
yeah
our mental health in so many ways.
yeah
And yeah, so this is another example of that because, you know, we'd rather have, you know, long, mellow ish suffering
yeah.
than, you know, this horrible acute pain, right?
Oh man.
Say of being rejected. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've had, well,
I'm going through that kind of right now. Like it's not easy, right? To quit your job and then start this, and it's like it's hard, you know. But I love it. Like I'm alive. I'm just pumping out ideas. Like I'm in touch with the reality, you know.
yeah, sure, sure,
Like there are crazy motherfuckers like me.
sure. No, but I'm just saying, like, you know, if you think about your romantic history, I'm sure you
Yeah.
have examples of, you know, unrequited love
Yeah.
that, or, you know, somebody dumping you or whatever.
Mm,
That can really hurt.
yeah, that hurts. I've been rejected once when I was like 16. I remember listening to Eminem. It was like a you know, he's got that kind of fuck you, I might kill you woman vibe to him. Like
Mhm.
he's a bit nuts. And so I guess as a 16-year-old, I kind of like works up just like, yeah, no, I'll get over this shit, you know. But being dumped, I don't know what that feels like.
So you've never had like a major breakup.
That someone initiated with me, no.
Or you initiated with someone?
Yeah. No, of course. That I've done. It's not nice. I hated it, and there's also like a few months after where you feel terrible, but I don't know what it feels like to be on the other side of things.
Yeah, probably worse, I would think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so being like, if somebody leaves you,
Yeah.
especially after many years of being in a relationship, doesn't matter if it was like horrible, it's an
Drives you nuts.
awful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
What's wrong with me? Why? What do I need to do to get, like, you're just constantly obsessing about that, I suppose, huh? You're just picking at your flaws for however long you're.
it it's just like, that might be a strategy of trying to process what happened.
Mm,
Initially, you just have the pain. It's like
mm,
losing
yeah.
a part of you. It's very painful. It's very hard to mitigate and navigate. And yeah, so would you rather die slowly or, receive this
Yeah.
grievous like
Yeah.
blow and lie there for an hour in a pool of blood? So most of us would say, okay, I'll rot from
Yeah.
away from cancer because
Yeah.
that's less frightening, it seems. Because it's like minute by minute, it's a
Yeah.
little progression, you know?
Yeah.
Because, if you get fat and die from it, it's not like you suffering
Yeah.
from the get go.
Yeah.
It sneaks in.
Yeah.
You waste away.
Yeah. But that's okay. So that.
Look, it's
No, look, like,
Well-
when I hear that, it strikes again very deep within me, because it's like, okay, we're all going in that direction. That's where we all end up, dead. So
Sure.
there's the sort of easy, calm way to go about through life. It's very tempting, right? Extremely, extremely tempting,
Sure.
And then there's like the fucking roller coaster. Now, if it's just way too many highs and way too many lows, that sounds horrible. But there's something in there, no? It's got to be pretty damn good, no?
So
I mean, the thing in and of itself is fantastic. Life is fantastic, right? As you said at the beginning.
life is everything and then some.
Yeah.
Parts of which are, and I'm not gonna like quantify it and put a percentage to it. Parts of which are fucking awesome. Parts of which are just terrible beyond imagination.
Yeah.
And a lot of ho hum, shit. And it really depends. There's not a mathematical formula. Okay, so if I have 20% awesome, 20% horrible, it's much better than flat.
Right.
Because you take the absolute value on the integral, blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah.
no, it depends on a person. Like some
Yeah.
person, for a moment of wonderful, he'll
Yeah.
eat a mountain of shit. And for other people, for a moment of shit, they'll give away a mountain of wonderful.
Yeah. And
I'm of the second class, and I suspect we're more numerous than our complementary part of humanity. The ones who will pay everything for glimpses of wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a stupid choice. It's safe, but it's a stupid choice because you just, it's like you
stupid.
go into this, hot tub and slice your veins and let them bleed out for over 40 years.
Yeah, but it's stupid in a very real sense, and like I've been making crazy amount of mistakes over the last, I don't know, basically this I don't know, last year, say, and it exposed quite a lot of stupid shit that was going on in my head, to myself, and I don't make those same mistakes anymore. You know what I mean? Now, I have that with me for the rest of my life.
So
It's cool.
exactly. So one of the problems with our culture is that you're not encouraged to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Making mistakes is wonderful as long as you said you learn from them and try something new.
Yeah.
That's the only way to learn, to grow,
Yeah.
to reach like new heights. Sorry for the cliche.
All good.
And yeah, so I mean, even in a work environment,
But
it's
it's
very
also
important to make the people who work in your organization feel free
yeah.
to make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the whole, I don't know, American 3 strikes and you're out or whatever, no tolerance. Of course, you know, shooting somebody in the head is not a mistake. Okay, so let's make it clear. It's about like honest mistakes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not like okay, I have this huge card.
The
I can
office is
murder
burned down.
once, rape once, grand arson once, grand theft, whatever.
Tomer, you're promoted, man. Wherever the hell you work, brain space, anywhere else. No, but it's also interesting in the context of, we're talking about love and falling out of love with a partner. And I mean, when you fall out of love with a partner, it's like someone that's barely even exists anymore. You're just doing your job and they're doing that. Like, that's the way you described it. Yeah, again, just paraphrasing what you said. But like, you want a partner who will also be into taking risks. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing, it's not that relationships are symmetrical inherently or quid
Yeah.
pro quo or anything like that. And yet, when you're generous, some of it will be reciprocated. And if it's not ever, yeah, so that would probably be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
I think, love and kindness and patience are very nurturing.
Yeah.
They give people a real opportunity to grow. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I think a lot of people, if not the vast majority of people, will actually, rise and meet that kindness with their own version of it.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Yeah, no, I have nothing to say. Like, I don't know. I can't argue with that.
And if we want to bring this to the question of understanding the brain.
Well, okay, no, but here's fuck your segue. I'm gonna go with mine. Here's what's so crazy is that there's this little thing inside your head that's generating all these emotions and thoughts that we just talked about for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I know there's a whole way that this shit works, and no one knows really how that shit works.
Sure, but an interesting question would be, in what sense could we know it that we would find satisfying? Okay, because if I would tell you something like mumbo jumbo X causes mumbo jumbo Y to spew out happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an explanation? Like they try to do with brain imaging. You have a center for blah blah blah.
Okay.
Is that different than saying you're possessed by a demon or an angel showed you a vision? Not really, because think about what's the underlying statement here.
I mean,
that you're not responsible. you know? It's
Mm.
the thingy A
Okay.
causing the thingy B to do whatever C. Okay? We love that shit. We love that shit, right? And I think if you try to think about it, as they do in psychoanalytic thought, as okay, what kind of processes do we have that drive us? We can make a lot of sense of it. Um, the tricky bit is to, you know, not exactly curb our expectations, but bark up the right trees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which means okay, accept that this whole game is a little bit fuzzy. Okay, that um, there's no underlying truth, and it's not because we don't know it. It's because it doesn't exist. Because we have our psyche, and one important aspect of it is our ability to generate narrative and our propensity and lust for consuming narrative.
Yeah.
Okay. But, you know, um, I also urinate, right? It's a natural bodily function.
Right.
I'm not the urine, right?
Yeah.
To be healthy, I have to urinate. If I
Right.
won't urinate, it will be bad.
Right.
Okay? So it might seem preposterous for somebody listening to think, okay, did he just equate peeing and generating narrative? Yes, on purpose. Because we have to understand it's just another natural function that derives from our Constitution. And as such, it has a scope. And if we indulge it beyond its scope, we get sick. Okay? Just like peeing. You shouldn't if you hold it too long, you can actually die
Okay.
and cause yourself all sorts of damage. And, you should drink enough and
So wait.
do all these reasonable things, and then it's fine.
So what is the analogous? What's the analogy? So you have the
So
peeing. Okay, that kills you.
we take our
physically.
narrative
Yeah.
way too seriously. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We equate it with the truth about ourselves, about the world, about whatever.
Mm.
Whereas it's just a mechanism that's supposed to help us break down the world into fathomable categories, B, communicate things to other people,
Yeah.
C, motivate ourselves. Okay?
Okay. So
To progress our wants, needs, whatever, I don't know, procreate.
the thing is, I've been down this road before. It's not a very pleasant road. Well, the idea that there is no fundamental truth, or so we perceive things, but this is just, really just a little speck of, like, it's not even close to what's actually going on.
Yeah, sure.
Which, on the one hand, of course, like we're just two guys sitting in a room. Like there's way, way, way more other stuff going on in the universe right now.
Sure.
So, yeah, like we're nothing really in the universe. So, of course, but that doesn't negate the fact that we're two guys sitting in this room. Like there does have to come the narrative in your head does have to come into some kind of contact with something that's going on in this place. No?
But I would say that the statement, as far as I'm concerned,
Mm-hmm.
I am the universe. It started with me and ends with me, is much more fundamental than we are two guys sitting in a room having a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a realist
Mm-hmm.
about one thing.
No, it's good.
Our experiences. Okay. And not an original idea for sure, but that's the way to go. Okay. Once you're a realist about experience, um, it's very, well, not very easy. It's easier to make sense of the bigger picture, right? Because if I feel, you know, at one with nature,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need there to be some old white man with a beard in the sky saying, "Oh, good, whatever.
Right.
You're a good boy. Here you go."
That
It
doesn't add
is.
anything to
It's
that
just
story. Yeah.
as good as it gets, or rather, given this body that I have, that's maybe, possibly, I don't know, as much as I can ascend. Okay.
Yeah.
And I even don't know that because potentially, I have all this hidden potential locked within my brain and my body, and I can learn perhaps to ascend even further. Okay.
Yeah.
What more would you need? Okay. When does this, when do things grow sour for us? When we need the external validation.
Yeah.
God, morality being rooted in some universal principles. If we don't want it to be God, then it has to be some logical principle. And, you know, you have to be an adult about it and come up with a homebrew that says, okay, I want to feel great. And I want to make other people have the opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah.
And the world is complicated and try to mitigate that. So it sounds very simple, but I can't believe I'm going to say this, but you know, it's a little bit reminiscent of Judaism. Not that I'm a fan, don't get me wrong, but the core activity in Judaism is trying to reinterpret the law, so called,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the needs of the community now. Okay? So, these very simple ideas that I want to feel good, I want to make other people's feel good, and I want to have it, be sustainable, stable, whatever, to break that down into a livable recipe, into
Yeah.
action items, um, rephrase it given how quick the world is changing, your body is changing, your position in life is changing, you grow old, all these things. Okay. So it's a continuous work of creation. Again, sorry about the new ageisms.
I once wrote something. Let's see if I can recapitulate this. I wrote just to amuse myself. I said something like, "You ever worked at a big corporation before?" So God is like the CEO of some big corporation, and he
Sure.
says something, and if you've ever been like a junior person in a big corporation, whatever the CEO says is like, oh my God, everyone just, they freak out, and oh my God, the CEO said it. Or if you're talking about like a company that's like 10,000 people or more,
Sure.
like who the fuck is the CEO? Who smells this guy's cologne? Like, so he's just this godlike figure, right? And then he says something. And it's just a bunch of nitwit assholes and sort of middle management who fuck it all up, right? The genius that comes from that guy's head, supposedly, right? And it comes down, and it's just chaos, and people have conflicting agendas, and it just doesn't really go well. That's organized religion for me. There's a message, and it gets filtered through some weird lens. Because
For sure.
the only thing I will say is that it's not that those religions haven't figured a lot of really important stuff out. Like just given our contract with fate and the way of the structure of our reality, they do have some pretty good insight into a few key things, I think.
That's like saying that, car shops in Israel have important insights about, how things work. They've come up with this wonderful system of fucking you over. Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's religion.
Come on, no. First of all, you can't say that the car shop people are all crooks and assholes. Like, yes, they have that reputation. I'm sure it's earned, but they also do sell you this bloody vehicle that just underpins your entire daily life.
You are part of a system that overcharges, like, by 3 times over on parts and labor and whatever. Most of the money goes to like a few owners or importers or whatever. Come on, it's an evil system, even though there might be, or a few good a few good people, that own maybe a shop and probably a lot of good people working there. Still, it's an evil industry, and
okay, but
the
whole system that you're talking about it's got a serious problem, but it's the best one we've ever come up with.
Well, I don't think the Israeli shop.
I thought you're
Israel.
making. Oh, okay.
No, but that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah. I was talking about capitalism.
Okay, that would be an example of an evil religion. Okay, so it started off with a few, perhaps profound observations about human nature or human society, perhaps a few good suggestions about how we should handle this, this thing that's called economy. But then it became like this the Greek word for
kleptocracy? No.
Kleptocracy.
Okay.
Thank you. And the reason for that is very simple, because if you think about it, the spirit of capitalism is about fair play. Not about, by the way, equal opportunities per se.
Right.
But about fair play.
Yes.
Right? Even in the early days of capitalism, they had antitrust laws and whatever. They understood that if the players can change the rules, then it becomes, help me out again,
a kleptocracy.
A kleptocracy.
Yeah.
Right? And now
no, but they also understood, just to buttress your point a little bit, is that fair play, but encourage competition, because competition gets the best out of us.
Yeah. So look what happens now. You have giants like Google or Facebook or whatever. They can buy an up-and-coming startup and just shut it down.
Right.
Because they perceive it as a threat.
Right.
I mean, I'm not old enough to remember IBM in its heydays, but I did see or was, aware of Microsoft since its pretty early days. And man, what a horrible company. They just held back the entire computer industry for like 15 years.
Really?
I feel so, yeah.
Wow. How? When what? I've never heard any of the history of IBM. What do you mean?
No, I don't know about IBM. This is Microsoft.
Oh, Microsoft.
I would think that IBM were like inspired all of this. But basically, they had a foothold in governments, institutions, and whatever. And, until the legislators started fighting back.
Okay, but hold on a second, because now I'm going to tie this a little bit to the religious discussion we were having before. It allows for a perpetual David versus Goliath to play out. Because, okay, let's say in this case, right, I have no idea if this is true or whatever. Let's say Apple is buying up companies and just to shut them down so that no new competitor can come in and take their lunch. they are such a Goliath, right? But the system, though, allows for these kind of corrupt. Again, I'm not saying Apple's corrupt, but in this imaginary example, this corrupted institution to decay, right? Because the fucking brilliant guys who built the company are gone, and it's all sort of managers who just want to do their jobs, get their paychecks, and go home. And then in comes, I don't know, a group of 10 people who are really super smart, super motivated, just see what's going on, and they take that thing to pieces, and it happens all the time.
I actually don't see it happening all the time. I see that, big corporations perhaps have a sell-by date.
Mm-hmm.
They can calcify to a point where they become irrelevant.
Yeah.
And, they might be Yahoo still somehow surviving, but they might be Xerox.
Right.
They used to say, can you Xerox me that? Right? Was used as a term.
Yeah.
We now say photocopy. We stopped saying photocopy because we just take a picture.
Right.
But they were that big.
Yeah.
They had like a prototype of a computer that Apple copied in the first Macs.
Yeah.
Where are they?
Kodak, Blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, IBM was on the verge of becoming that.
Mm-hmm.
And, they pivoted and now they're, very, very big. Not as big as they were, but they're still a very big institution. But again, if you look, I lived a few years in the States,
Wait,
right?
hold on a second. Because America let... Now, this isn't like a glorification of the financial crisis. Not at all, okay? But they let a major fucking bank fail. That's a big fucking deal. You can't let all of them fail because then you just... everyone's eating their shit on the street.
Threw a lot of money to the banks.
Totally.
The people took the hit, and essentially the banks are exactly doing the same things they were doing then.
Yeah.
The laws hadn't been changed. Actually, there's been a rollback during the Trump years, right?
Yeah.
And look.
No, look,
my experience of America, fair play was a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It was an important thing in America.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's the case anymore. If you'll grab a kid off the street, I don't think that will be a meaningful term for them.
So what is meaningful to them now? What do you think?
Likes, views, money, bling.
What happened?
We broke the machine. And we didn't provide an alternative. Yeah. Think about it.
Come on, man. So you really think America's done?
America is done. Not quite. No, first of all, there's no alternative at the moment. Okay?
To likes and clicks?
To America. Like, America is still the number one generator of culture.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
In terms of cultural influence, perhaps it's never been stronger. And still, it's verging on being a failed country in many regards. You can't fix fucking bridges, let alone lay a new railroad track or, do something about debt. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think of all the problems that you list, I think the debt is what scares me the most. Because the other stuff can be fixed. Like,
the debt
really,
can also be fixed.
Smart and
the
beautiful.
Debt can also be fixed.
We
write it off. What are you going to do? No, that's the thing.
I don't know. I'm not an economist. I have no idea.
I have no idea, but...
That doesn't just... If it was that easy, I think they would have done that by now. Sounds like that would have triggered some sort of global financial crisis. Otherwise, they would have done it, no?
Yeah, and, Russia just triggered a global financial crisis because of its interests. So sometimes countries do that. And who's paying the price?
Yeah.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
And, you know, if somebody shoots Putin like next week, what
Pass me the wine.
will happen to Russia in 5 years compared to, I don't know, like Europe?
What do you mean?
Who's going to, you know, get back on their feet quicker? Inherently, it depends on what they do. There's nothing in the situation that forces Russia to be a straggler from now on. There perhaps is because, you know, their history, their attitude towards governance and all that.
Yeah.
But in terms of economical situation, they still have this huge country that's so rich with, you know, natural resources.
Yeah.
And they could pick themselves up, right?
It really depends, man. There are some countries that have tons of natural resources. That
Sure,
didn't,
but it's about like cultural DNA, right? So here's the thing. They did something that the West thought was like, come on. And they're losing horribly. Like everybody thought they would just kill the Ukrainians.
Right.
Like that this would be, you know, a second Iraq war.
Right.
Right? And then the sanctions would break them. The opposite happened. Like the sanctions, everybody's getting hurt. It's not clear if the West is not getting hurt as much, or at least order of magnitude. And they're losing, like, you read about what's happening there and we don't know all the facts. It's just the worst war they've had, I don't know, since I guess the Second World War, and you know,
it's
kind
like,
of a very different scenario.
It's like they're Afghanistan or they're Vietnam even. If I was to make this an American.
Yeah. I think it's actually much worse, but I haven't checked the numbers.
Much worse. Actually, it is much worse because they're neighboring countries. Right? Vietnam is like all the way fucking over there. So how much did you really feel it at home? You know?
Yeah, and also if you would look at the ratio of casualties, I don't know, but I would think that in Vietnam it would be like more or less even Steven, or even the Viet Cong got hurt more, right? And here it's not the case. The Ukrainians are slaughtering the Russians.
Oh, really? That's sorry, I haven't been tracking this at all. Really? Slaughtering them? Wow.
As far as I know, the Russians have lost tens of thousands of soldiers.
Wow.
Okay? Because they're so inept in managing the war. And there's a lot of infighting between generals. And basically, it seems that Putin is not, like, I don't know, I don't want to say entirely sane, but at least he's lost touch with, you know, the ground truth.
Honestly, man, at that level, you know, when you're the, what is he, president? He's president of Russia. It's hard to say if this isn't all calculated or not. I mean, imagine that guy, you know, a spy. You know, he was in the KGB, then he became president. Like,
how is this serving him?
No, I have no idea. I'm just saying.
He's dying by most accounts.
Is that true? Is that his cancer?
That's, you know, we just read the papers. By most accounts, that's what people are saying.
Okay.
And he's the point that he really cares about legacy. Okay? And he wanted to cement his legacy as this great Russian leader, a leader for, you know, Peter the Great.
Wait, bring
2.0. 2.0.
Yeah.
And what's actually happening, that he's destroying his legacy. Like, he was admired, and, you know, again, I think he's not going to survive much longer. And I don't think Russian history is going to be kind to him after this.
I don't know, man. I really don't know. No, really. I know that this war is horrible, right?
Sure.
Okay, and he instigated this.
Sure.
That's the sort of the common narrative, right? There is an anti-narrative to that, but whatever. Won't get into it. There is still a chance that guy could be remembered within Russia as the guy that stood up for the nation and added a bit of this and reclaimed, right? There is that, right? It's possible. I'm saying within Russia.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were discussing before, narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's a possibility. I just don't think it's likely. Because I don't
think about Stalin, for example. Does that guy have a purely negative reputation in Russia?
In Russia?
Purely negative? They all hate him. They all didn't, I have no idea. But
well, I'm not an expert on Russia, but
I remember one dude in the army. He's like, he was trying to say something like, why was like you Americans think that Stalin was so bad, but your president sent 2 nuclear bombs over Japan? Why are you guys getting all uppity about what, the crazy, horrible things that Stalin did?
That's a different thing. That's a different thing.
No, there's also
and I agree to statements like that because...
No, come on. There's a difference.
There isn't. Look, America always portrays itself as the good guy, whereas, it's been peddling arms and mongering war and perpetuating war, and it's in many ways responsible for these horrible things happening, or just as responsible as Europe and Russia and China are.
Okay, Noam Chomsky, but hold on a second. Yes, absolutely, but just take a sort of a longer view of things. Like, every person you find on the street is a terrible person, capable of terrible things. Okay? And so just because the people that the Americans elected into power doesn't mean that they're any better or worse than, the people that came before us and the people that are come after us. Like, normal people, that just did in order to do terrible, terrible things, right? But if you take a look at the larger view of okay, how many people have been lifted out of poverty since the Soviet Union fell? Absolute poverty, sorry. Like, the numbers are just clearly going in one direction. Now,
I'm not...
Yeah. So
I'm not defending communism.
No, I know.
And the USSR. Never.
No, I know.
It was an evil empire, but is the United States categorically different? I'm not sure anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing so much evil shit and has been doing so much evil shit. And look, think about all these wars they started to fight communism.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just pure evil. Saying, I'll topple this regime, I'll, finance and arm this whatever sect or cult, or they did and are doing horrible things which derive from inherently not seeing other people as their equals.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And this is the whole problem.
But
the problem is...
Wait. Again, you gotta give the whole story there, because yes, everything the way you said, absolutely correct. But in a contest between ideologies, that one is explicitly a sort of annihilationist about the other, right? So communism saying like capitalism, very nice, your time is over, now it's our turn, globally, so goodbye to you guys. That's pretty fucking threatening. And then they have nukes. Like, well, why do you have nukes?
I still remind you that as far as I know, the only country that had used nuclear weapons are the Americans.
Yep.
For no reason at all. Definitely the second bomb.
Right. Well, they wouldn't surrender, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were about to surrender, but I'm not going to argue about that.
Yeah.
For sure, the second bomb was overkill.
Yeah.
And as a fact, it's saying, okay, our lives are worth so much more than yours.
Yeah.
Okay. And, sure, I understand why you would want to save the lives of people closer to you, but at some point it becomes pure evil. Okay?
Yeah. Have you ever read John Hershey's book, Hiroshima? Wow. Read it. So the bomb goes off, and it's essentially a state of nature. Nothing works anymore. Civilization has just been completely obliterated. And people are dying on the streets. It's hell on earth.
It's hell on earth. And, there's a lot of little hells on earth.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, floods in Pakistan. Is that actually that much better, if at all?
Right.
So, again, we, are force-fed American narrative all the time because of their cultural dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Because we consume American film and music and TV and books and comic books, you name it. Okay? So, one of my vices is that I, like to either read trashy fantasy novels or watch trashy fantasy series because, I like the themes. I played D&D for half my life, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they all suffer from this horrible, horrible American perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a very human perspective. That me and mine is important and everything else is not. Because if you analyze stories produced by American media, it's always about family, typically struggle between or something to do with father and son. And a lot of times there's, a vengeance involved, like somebody did something wrong, killed part of your family, and you're going to try to avenge that. Now, in the process, you're killing, a zillion of the redcoats, right? How are they called in Star Trek, right? Redcoats?
I have no fucking clue.
They don't have families. They're not important. They're just what Hitchcock called MacGuffins. You know what a MacGuffin is?
No.
Like in one of his movies, there's a body, I think, of somebody who's been murdered whose name is, surprising enough, MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like a plot device. You never see him. It's just a MacGuffin, okay? And
oh, that's horrible.
But that's the epitome of American thought. You can destroy a fucking country because it's about 9/11. Okay, sure. It was a horrible act of terror. But you destroyed what? 2-3 countries to avenge that? I mean, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? I don't know anymore.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man.
And one of the things that impedes the moral development of America is that it never pays the price. All these wars are not fought in America.
Mm-hmm.
Like 9/11
mm-hmm.
was, I think, the only time you took a hit.
Okay, and now understand why they fought back so ferociously, why they reacted so ferociously. It's like, holy shit, on our turf, you struck at the symbols of this beautiful place. Whoa, go fuck yourself, right? That was. Were you around? Wait, hold on. Were you around on September 11th in America? No.
No.
Okay, so
I was watching on TV.
The whole country united. It was for like, I don't know, however long it was, right? Like every day, everyone went to the TV to watch the live coverage of, people trying to, extract other people from the rubble. You could still see the smoke coming out of the buildings. Like, everyone has those memories that was around back then, old enough to, I don't know, to really experience it, right? To remember it. And yeah, it's like, oh my God, we are under attack. This is crazy.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It isn't crazy. That's part of like practically
but to an American, it is
everybody else's life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They say with great power comes great responsibility, right? Spider-Man
Yes.
and all that. The thing is, America never realizes that, because it's like, a person that doesn't have the capacity to feel pain because they're never hit.
No, I have to disagree again. I think
the last time
look,
American elite was hit by something was the Great Depression, right? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
This is the only time in memory that I have that actually they tried to change the system a little bit. FDR. Because it's the only time your elite got hurt. 2008. What happened? Okay, Madoff, whatever.
Madoff, yeah.
Madoff. So a few people, rich people, lost their assets, but most of them, right? And then the stock market rocketed for like a decade, or
yeah. Okay, but hold on. Okay, but why would you argue against your system if it's producing wealth for not only for you but also for other people as well?
That's the thing.
And more or less keeping everyone wealthy, safe.
That's the thing.
Now, wait, hold on.
That can be contested. That's not a fact.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And it's also very concerning the way things are going now, right? That there's more crime in the streets in the U.S. But for example, that who knows, maybe they're going through a recession. Like these things are concerning. But still, overall, look at the way wait, hold on a second. Look at the way Americans spend their time. Like, I was looking at on YouTube. There's this guy called Mr. Beast. You ever heard of him?
I think so.
Okay, he's the top YouTube individual creator on the platform. I think. Anyway, like his videos get 200 million views or something like that.
Okay.
200 million views. Most of that coming from the English-speaking world. Most of that probably assuming coming from the U.S. Like, Americans have a lot of time to fuck around,
Sure.
So that does mean that they have achieved some level of financial or even physical security that the rest of the world just doesn't have.
Okay. Okay. So, by the way, this is like the same kind of arguments that you hear about explaining why Bibi was a great prime minister.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you want to analyze a situation, you can't cherry pick data, which, caters to your preconceived notion.
Okay.
You have to look at the bigger picture.
Yep.
Explain me this. How many out of the first world countries, which is the only country who has steadily had its life expectancy decrease in the last decade? Okay?
That's the U.S. probably, right?
Right. So,
and the healthcare system not the greatest in the Western world, although that has its own sort of other side argument as well. But I take your point.
And basically, like, there are two Americas.
Mm-hmm.
And red America, middle America, life there is pretty shitty, and people are just essentially killing themselves with heroin, opiates, whatever.
Yeah.
And their life is shit.
Yeah.
And so this derives from, the rich getting so ridiculously rich, and yet fighting against this notion of common good, like paying taxes.
Yeah.
Right? What do? You open a charity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get a tax cut for that. So you're not really giving away money, right? And then like half of the budget of the charity is probably for like fundraising events where you sit with your friends and, have this fancy night out and so on.
I guess my question is, there's nothing I disagree with in that fundamental picture. My only pushback, and I know that you would agree with this just based on what you said before, but is money the thing that gets you happiness? Only up to a certain extent of wealth, and then the rest is just figuring out how best to spend your time, right?
Well, I
And
think we
that you would
might have discussed this experiment the last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have two monkeys in a cage, you give one of them 2 bananas, and you give the other one 1 banana. What does the monkey who gets 1 banana do?
He wants.
He takes the banana and throws it at the
Oh.
experimenter. That's basic humanity,
Definitely.
And you look.
No, but okay, but I guess the point there still is, we're still 2 monkeys in a cage, and one has a banana and the other has a Tesla, right? But in our experiment, one has a Tesla and the other's got a Ford, which is this technology that's never existed before in the history of humanity.
Again.
Even if it's from 1984 and it's got fucked up.
Just look at your basic facts. You used to be able, as a working man in the U.S., to go to your job and yet, have a mortgage, sure.
Yeah.
But buy a house.
Yeah.
Have a car, support your wife, your 2 children, a dog, have your picket fence, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It used to be realistic.
Right.
It isn't.
Right.
That is becoming more and more true all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Your chances of buying an apartment in Israel are, dimming into nothing. Right?
Yeah.
That's just an example we're familiar with because we live here.
No, but it's also true in European countries. Like, so my wife is Dutch, and I hear a lot about same thing in Holland. The housing prices are fucking going crazy, and young people can't afford to buy a house in Holland, which is like absurdly easy to get a house and a mortgage.
Yeah, it used to be. Yeah, that's what I heard. I'm surprised by what you said because I heard that everybody can get like a lifetime government-backed mortgage, and then everybody can, like, instead of paying rent, eventually own their own apartment. So
they have all sorts of amazing things. Like they used to have this thing called a vastcontract, which is basically a lifetime contract at work. So you could really only get fired under the most extraordinary circumstances, basically. So you had job security for the rest of your life, and a bank saw this and you're like, okay, you're riskless. Either you're going to pay us your loan until you can, or you're going to die and then you won't be able to pay us. But that's the only way that you're not going to be able to pay us, essentially, right? Because you got a job for life. So yeah, and the housing, there was enough housing for everyone, and it wasn't just so fucking expensive.
So,
and they have all sorts of rent controls.
I think that our only way of having good lives is committing ourselves to the idea that everybody should have a good life to some extent.
Yeah.
Even if me as an individual has to sacrifice a little bit for that.
Yeah.
And really be committed to that idea. And committed to ideas that we sort of forgot, like freedom of speech, freedom of thought, just basic human rights writ large. Okay? And not color-based or religion-based. Like, everybody would agree to that now, but nationality-based as well.
But hold on a second on the nationality thing. We're talking about stories, right? Narratives that we imbibe. That's one of them, and it's pretty damn useful if you think about it. When you say, I'm going to share my resources with another person just so I can ensure their happiness, and their happiness ensures my happiness, and with a nation, I'm giving up resources to people I have no clue who they are. But
why do we have weather?
What do you mean?
Why is there weather? Why is there difference in temperature?
I've never I've never
Okay,
even thought of the question.
right, because there's an unequal distribution of heat and pressure over the surface of the planet.
Okay.
Okay? And it can't stabilize
Okay.
for various reasons, a lot of which I'm not aware of because it's not my thing,
Okay.
right? But the point here is for there to be a dynamic of flow,
Mm-hmm.
of pressure, and hence temperature and wind and all these things, you need disparities.
Mm-hmm.
High pressure, low pressure. That drives weather.
Okay.
Okay? So our notion of economy is driven by this as well. You need the rich, you need the poor, you need, strong nations, you need weak nations, right? So let's try and abstract from that, okay? So there's something fundamentally right about this. For there to be a dynamic, there has to be disparity. It's just the way of things.
Right. Right.
There has to be something
Dynamic means in its essence different, right? Different.
means changing. Dynamic means
But
changing.
Changing
And
different.
and
same
and
thing.
changing, if there's no difference, there's no change.
Right.
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 So the question is, how can we sublimate this game? Right? Because at the moment, it's sort of like a Ponzi scheme. In what sense? Our economic model is a model of growth. Now, for that to be sustainable, we have to colonize other planets, trash them in turn, and colonize more. And until, I don't know, whatever happens, the Klingons eat us or whatever the fuck. Yeah?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So
Yeah.
think
No,
about it.
the Klingons. That's the part I didn't get.
Oh, okay. So it's not a sustainable
Yeah.
way of life. Okay? Same thing at the national level, right? We have to subjugate other countries for our prosperity. Because if we had a universal tax code and universal workers' rights, our economy would look very, very different, right? Just as a result of that. Okay? So we want to respect the fact that for there to be a dynamic, and without a dynamic, there's no life.
Yeah.
And we need incentives for people, to shine and work hard and create. How can we do that in a way that's less abusive? Okay? I think our current system has kind of run its course. And I think that feeling is almost shared by everybody to some extent, at least in the Western world, because we realize our politicians are not actually working for us.
Okay, but
That our country doesn't actually care about us or take, we're working for it.
so let me say something fucked up then. You take a system like that where sometimes to be truly great, you got to be just kind of a horrible person, right? Like if you think about what they say about what Michael Jackson, what he did was true, and it sounds like he did molest those kids.
Yeah, sure.
That guy made music that my kids dance to. You know what I mean? Like Kanye West is another example right now. Like I don't know what's going on with that guy, but it's undeniable that that guy made music that hundreds of millions of people dance to and know the words to, and they they used to run their runs at night or work out.
What's their name? Sackler? The family, Okay, so
the opioid people.
they created something that made millions of people do some sort of dance. That's not a mark of quality. That's
Well, come on.
appealing to the masses can't be a mark of quality.
Why not?
because heroin, opiates, McDonald's also appeal to the masses.
No, but there are works of art that do appeal. Like everyone goes to the Sistine Chapel.
I didn't say a good thing should be like shunned by the masses. I said it can't be the only mark of greatness. There has to be some other criteria. Okay?
No, but my point is, if you appeal to the masses and you win, that does say something rather profound about your ability to identify with whatever it is that connects you to hundreds of millions of people. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, but think about it.
Even the people who aren't even born yet. That's
Donald Trump.
Wait, hold on. That's what's amazing. Like if you think about Beethoven, right? That guy died, I think, more than 200 years ago, and yet we continue to listen to that guy's music. Of all the music that has been produced since he was alive, he's still around, and it's like him and, I don't know, 10 other guys from that era, right?
More or less, yeah.
Well, whatever. And he's by far number one. Him and Mozart, say.
Bach. But
okay, fine. The three of them, sure. Holy shit, man. He tapped into something.
3 different musical periods, by the way. Never mind.
I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me. Bach was in the 1700s.
No. In terms of like Baroque, classical era, and
you can tell me
romanticism, whatever.
20 times I won't remember. It doesn't fucking matter. The point is I listen to their shit, and so many other people do, and that ability to capture that in music, is pretty damn impressive.
Let's go to the punch. The question is, should creative geniuses be absolved from doing vile shit? That's the question you raised. The second question,
I didn't raise that question,
which is even, I think, more profound. Can somebody create like really awesome shit without being an asshole?
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah. You don't think so?
And look, the common conception of art was for, 200, 300 years, the suffering artist.
Right.
Right? That artists had to be misunderstood and, essentially suffer to create. Okay? Not necessarily be bad people, fine, but suffer to create. Now, is that something essential about the dynamics of creation? Or is that just, pseudo-Christian or Protestant drivel, right? You have to suffer. Like Christ suffered for us. Hard work. And I don't think it's an easy question to answer.
Why not? For me, it's simple. Yeah. I think
why?
Yes, you have to suffer.
Well,
I'll
give you an example.
Yeah.
So we talked about these 3 people. Bach, Mozart, did not discuss it. Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven, right? Beethoven, I think, maybe suffered quite a lot because he was kind of, he grew deaf, and he seemed to have had a lot of familial and romantic problems. Sure, Mozart, didn't succeed as much as he thought he deserved and died young, whatever, and, was always in debt, blah, blah, blah. But Bach, wow, he seems like the happiest of people. He lived to a ripe old age and had a gazillion children, okay, his wife died, immediately married a young hottie, whatever, and he died, as far as I know, composing, like working on, I forget the name now.
So how do you access
The Art of Fugue. I think he died in the middle of working on The Art of Fugue.
how do you access those emotions, you know? You've got to go through some stuff in order to get there. And then to be able to translate that into the music, no?
Yeah, but the question is about, like, proportions and mechanisms. Sure, if your life is going to be always sweet, the likelihood of you being able to understand the range of human emotions is kind of slim. But, say you fall in love with a person in second grade,
Mm-hmm.
and, it's unrequited. That can be hell, right? So it's not you worked in a coal mine, you're hungry, whatever. You're a trust fund kid and life is sweet and everything, but you love this person, didn't love you back. Wow. You're traumatized.
True.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, life offers us enough to experience enough if we're sensitive enough. Okay? And and this is important, this ties back to what we discussed initially, if we're open enough.
Yeah.
Because we can say, okay, I don't want any more of this shit. I'm just going to be like this and, be flat like that and sail towards my inevitable demise. And, it'll be fine. So I think, again, that because if we tie back to a second point, right? If we're realists about experience and we realize that experience is not something that derives from reality or facts, it might be contingent on some mechanisms and facts or whatever, but in a strong sense, it doesn't really derive from anything. Okay? It is a stage or a sandbox or a canvas that we can create on, in, with, and the onus is upon us to make the best of it, to decide whether we, want to cower under a rock and, just let life pass, or we want to go for it big time, or, we can go to the YMCA and take a little course, and draw our little pictures and be happy nevertheless.
Yeah.
All of those are like models you see around you, like people who are going for the full Monty, people who try a little bit, and people who just don't try at all.
Right.
Or even like burn the fucking canvas. Right?
Right.
You see examples for that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean,
but hold on a sec, because you did say something that was interesting, but also kind of confused me. Is that it's a canvas? It's not reality isn't really derived on anything fundamental or sound. And it's up to us to.
So one of the greatest philosophers.
Wait, hang on a second. So, but if this whole thing isn't real, then who is the us that's on the canvas playing with this thing that isn't real?
Again, you're trying to pin your existence, the dynamics of your experience on something external to you. Because it helps. You're a little bit less responsible. Maybe there's a benevolent force there, something that absolves you. I don't know. Okay? The point of the matter is that apart from, those motivations, intellectual curiosity, what matters, and the only thing that matters is what you experience. And it's a choice, right? As we discussed, are you willing to risk, getting beat down and getting disappointed and getting hurt to try to achieve greater heights, or you're not? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that came out not exactly right, because again, that caters to the notion of suffering for. It's not like that. It's what I mean by being a realist about experience is understanding that there's no grander truth than experience. We are working to try and shape and control and do things with our experience. Like, I would say one of the most interesting things you can do is try to expand the scope of experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you want to keep it fresh. That's a very big challenge, because, I keep on returning to that word calcify, because
Mm-hmm.
I think, it really captures an important mechanism in our psyche, right? That we can calcify, grow stale. And the most wonderful things, like the example I gave about the dynamics of relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be the same thing, if you would think about your relationship to food. Like, okay, you've had this pizza, it's great, but now, like, you've been all over Brooklyn, and you've been there, and you've been to Napoli or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now it's like, yeah, I can't enjoy, a pizza anymore, because I remember the pizza in Naples, So what happened here is that rather than expanding your scope of experience, you abused this experience to belittle your current experience. Okay? So the challenge as a person is to have exposure, and new and exciting things make you more, and rather than less. Okay? Because if you become a foodie in the sense that now, oh, this is not good enough, it only has to be the best pizza in the world for me to enjoy it, and now I'm having it for the second time and I don't even enjoy that. Okay, so I'll have to look for something else. Okay? So, okay, this is something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, having sex with your partner. Okay? Think about that. Think about that example, right? Can you just keep on thinking that it's this wonderful connection of body and spirit and whatever, mind, sorry, not spirit, between two people who love one another? What can be greater than that? Or, okay, I've done this 1,000 times, I'm getting bored. Let's buy the Kama Sutra. And, if you've reached that point, you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most natural thing. We're all perhaps hardwired to go there, right? Because it drives us.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's what's good for us, okay?
Or even true.
Or even, there's no,
Right.
the fact of the matter is that you crapped up your life. You had something good.
Mm-hmm.
There's no conclusive proof that you couldn't have kept it good, and yet
Mm-hmm.
it turned sour.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do, so there's this thing
But it's
I was taught in Introduction to Psychology.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the fundamental attribution error, right?
Mm.
So when we look at other people, say if they do something bad, it's always because of a trait, something inherent that drives them to do something bad. Or in our scenario, we were not attracted to our partners anymore because they blah blah blah. Okay. The flip side is that if I do something wrong, it's always because of circumstances. I'm not a bad person. I was tired. You know. So that's the thing. We have to always see people as, entities, full-fledged entities, which are just as important as us, but also see ourselves as full-fledged entities who are important, not cosmically, but also, yes, cosmically, because
Yeah.
we are the universe.
Yeah.
Does that make us any more important than anybody else? No.
Right.
Does it make us less important than anybody else? No. We're a unique, singular existence, and we have to respect that in ourselves and in others. And that's a good start for like trying to, shape your experience in a constructive way.
That it was when I realized that my thinking on abortion kind of started to shift a little bit. Before I was like, of course, pro-choice, women's rights, all that. Like, of course, that makes total sense. And then you're like, oh God, but to end the life, that's.
So I'm assuming you're a vegan. Yeah. Okay. So,
no, I
sorry. No. No.
No. Listen. Putting hypocrisy aside, it doesn't negate the fact that life is still incredible and a miracle, right? Okay, miracle is a loaded word. It's still this incredible thing, right? And to end it, it's like I'm not saying
so
that
there are
no.
Wait, hold
on. Let me just clarify. I'm not anti-abortion, right? I'm just saying, it was like, oh, now there's this other component to it that I hadn't even thought of before. It's a big deal.
Okay, so when you engage in moral reasoning, you have to balance between the here and now and potential.
Yeah.
That's fucking tricky.
Yes.
I don't know of like a perfect foolproof calculus for that. And yet, to some extent, you have to say, okay, here and now, A is big like this, B is small like that, A wins. Okay? Is there a complete perfect justice here? I don't know. I mean,
wait, let me.
I'll give an example.
Let me just.
I'll give an example. Just a second. Yeah. I love this one. It's one of the best ones I know. What's the name of the Greek historian? Herodotus.
Okay.
So he's like considered to be the first historian.
Okay.
And he expressed like a very common conception in classical Greek thought about fate. Okay? I would ask, are you happy? You couldn't answer me.
Right.
Because the only point where that question could be answered is after you died, after your life had completed. Because this is just like all the Greek tragedies, right? What drives the tragedy? Hubris. Somebody like had everything, and then he got too big for his breeches, and the gods, smote him and taught him that, he should know his place. Okay? So think about that. There's something, so if we take that back to the question of abortion, so what are you supposed to do here? Are you supposed to actually consider the entire possible life of, this little cluster of cells? if you think about it that way, I mean, I think the position that you can't say if you're happy until your life has completed is nonsensical. Okay? It's taking something perhaps appealing and driving it to an extreme. It doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay.
Okay? So you have to come up with some sort of, calculus.
Yeah.
A is that much bigger, B is that much smaller. I have to make that choice.
Right.
Is it completely, absolutely true, bulletproof, God-given, whatever? No. Can you do anything but make such decisions? No. That's life.
Yeah.
Sadly, your life comes at the expense of others. We haven't solved that. I don't know if we can. Like, for you to enjoy whatever it is that you have, somebody had to pay the price. Okay? We haven't broken that cycle. I don't know if we ever will. I don't know if you can. And I don't know if it's a good thing. Like, meritocracy is an appealing term. But, if you go with that idea, it might be that, we'll have godlike people and people who are very simple, and the godlike people should then enjoy godlike privileges, right? That's also meritocracy. So what's too much meritocracy? What are the limits of that, right? So inherently in ethics, you have calculus. And that derives from a person's, perspective. And different people have different perspectives, and we somehow need to mitigate that and find a common ground, and it's fucking tricky.
I'm with you. I think just to sharpen what I was trying to say was I got more empathetic, I suppose, to the religious viewpoint. Like, imagine if you really believe that there's a creator of the universe and this thing is, I don't know, super intelligent or whatever, and has life in mind and decided this life should come into the world, and who are you, you speck of dust in this universe to challenge that. Like, and this life thing that you and I both have, which is wonderful, and every day it's a surprise somehow.
So if
wait, that I have more sympathy for. It doesn't mean that I side with them ultimately, but it's I can see where they're coming from, at least.
I respect that, and yet, like, if you go with that reasoning, right, and if somebody tries to murder you, can you justify killing him first?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's precisely the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the cynical part of me says, okay, I mess with data. I've been messing with data my entire adult life. Let's look at correlations here. What do these pro-life people usually support? Definitely in America. Correlation is, if you're in a cluster of cells, oh, you're a precious life. If you're fucking born and poor, we don't give a shit. So I actually care more about the children who were actually born and are actually, have the capacity to feel so much more and whatever.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't know what capacity a cluster of cells has for experience. I think very little, if at all.
Yeah.
But
and that's actually the best. I would say that's the best argument for abortion, because it's I mean, within reason, right? Like, not you can't, but it's pretty gruesome after a certain point. But you just can't care about every single person that exists. Like, at some point, it's really up to them.
Inherently, because morality involves calculus, and calculus derives from um, objective functions, what we would say technically, like values. And those are, derived to a large extent from perspectives. And everybody's perspective is slightly different. So
Yeah.
I actually wonder if there's if you can prove this mathematically, that under no moral calculus can you find a solution that would leave everybody happy.
What do you mean? Just in terms of abortion, or generically speaking?
Moral dilemmas or conflicts at large.
That everyone is happy?
Like,
No.
say you have this not happy, done right by the principal. Because this is multifaceted, you would have these conflicts. This person has rights, this person has rights, and actually there's not a compromise in this situation.
Yeah.
It's like government money subsidizing drugs. Okay, a lot of times you don't have a compromise. You either have money for this, you have a piggy bank. Okay? You have to decide. They get it, they don't get it. If they get half and they get half, still, there are losers here, right? Because of finite resources, because, there are different wants, needs, perspectives.
Yeah.
Which inherently conflict and collide. There's always going to be somebody who gets the shorter end of the stick.
Yeah.
Leibniz, the famous mathematician and philosopher, said, "This is the best of all possible worlds."
Jesus.
And look, he was 20 times smarter than not only both of us, the entire fucking Google or whatever. There have been very few geniuses such as him. So, if he says something, I'll at least try to understand where he's coming from. Having said that, come on, the best of all, but it might be true.
Right.
Because inherently there's conflict, because we have different perspectives, because we can't be satisfied by the same things, and the cake is finite.
But also, we need. I mean, the high is directly correlated with the low, right? Don't know if it's.
So there's. I think it was in the 60s. So they discovered a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens. Okay? Supposedly the pleasure center. And they implanted electrodes in mice brains, and in a Skinner box. They let them, press on a lever and zap themselves in the nucleus accumbens. And the legend was that they fried their brains. They just kept on pressing because so this guy, Larry Niven, wrote books where this was the ultimate drug. These people were called wireheads.
Okay.
Right? So think about it. If you could just, press a button and, excite your pleasure center.
Okay.
Would you want to do anything else?
No. I guess, right?
And actually, I think that's not true.
Okay.
Because thank the spaghetti monstrette, our brain is plastic. Meaning it would probably become aversive at some point.
Really?
Really.
So it has this sort of autocorrect mechanism that too much pleasure is.
I wouldn't want to state it in terms that sound like, so organized and regular or whatever, but it would have a degenerative effect on your brain because, it's it's like your brain activity dynamics would become like very impoverished. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
the homeostasis, the brain has a lot of homeostatic mechanisms
Mm.
which don't allow you, to sink into that. Okay. And from what I know about about drugs, about drug dependency, like it in the end becomes aversive,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know this as a fact, but from what I know about brain dynamics and mechanisms, I expect that it's the brain trying to kick your butt and say, okay, your brain dynamics are now too impoverished. Do something else.
That's fucking crazy. I just had a weird thought about music. So we talked a little bit before about Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms. Brahms? No.
Bach.
Bach.
Bach. I don't know how you say it in American.
Bach. Anyway, is that like, if you're thinking about this in terms of evolution, I'm just pulling this straight out of my ass, yeah, that it's like a mechanism by which we can codify those peaks and valleys and then pass it on to other generations so that their brains can achieve those same, even proxy states for those same brain states. Because for example, when I was rejected by that girl when I was 16, it was music, right, that helped me get through it. And part of that came from Eminem's dark place when he's got his fucked up relationship with his girlfriend, wife, whatever, and then other girlfriends. You gotta pee? All right,
I have to. Sorry.
we'll take a break.
Actually, I love this example that you've just given.
Okay. By the way, so we're back from a pee break, and I just for the listener's sake, definitely when you're urinating, that's reality. So you love my example of music,
of the
codifying those brain states, those peaks and valleys.
the peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really the difference between us modern humans and most species on the face of the planet. Because I think we codify not only the peaks and values, but like in a meta sense, what makes for peaks and valleys. Not just the mental map of these
Mm-hmm.
peaks and valleys, but sort of the mental strategy of creating peaks and valleys.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why, for example, if you look at music, it changes so much over time. Okay, we're not creating the same kind of music in the same style, but music is evolving and becoming very different.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons is, again, that we in our constitution, we have this capacity of meta learning.
Mm.
Not only the situation, but how it generalizes across, well, I don't want to say across the board, but at least in a more abstract sense. And we actually derive pleasure from exploring these kind of mental or experiential landscapes. Okay? That's essentially creation.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? You get into this space of ideas, visions, sounds, smells, I don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
And you, some would say create in it, others would say discover. The truth is, I don't know, somewhere in between, or I really don't know what to say about this. And I think that's really, mutar adam bema. If there is any such thing, maybe it's that. And
you're talking about music as this sort of
not music, creation.
Creation. Okay.
Music is an example of creation.
Right.
Right? But you could have said, okay, like, we learned the peak and values, a style of music, like classic rock and roll. So we continue to create songs in classic rock and roll. Maybe we don't even have to create songs. Like if we believe, reconstructions of human history, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had storytellers, and they were telling the same story year after year, decade after decade, century after century, supposedly. I'm not sure it's actually true, but if it is, then we are at a different stage where we are incentivized, compelled even, definitely attracted by, trying to do something new.
Okay.
And that is essentially exploration of meta ideas or meta aesthetic structures.
Yeah.
And it's tempting to imagine like alien species, like if we can do 1 or 2 levels in this recursion or abstraction, maybe they can do 30. Maybe their art is just like, wow, we couldn't even fathom.
I mean, in some sense, that is us, right? Okay, I'll give you an example. So, when I quit my last job, I was worried. What am I gonna do? Oh my God, can I make it on my own? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I called my father. My father, just a wise guy, very wise, and been through a lot, and just always kept a very optimistic point of view on life. And he said to me, it's like, you're a millionaire. And it's like, what? It's like, you're young. You have a beautiful wife. You're healthy. You have a very nice family. You've had nice experience. Like you have everything that you need to live for. Like you have everything to live for, and you have everything you need. And you have the capacity to do it. Like, that's fantastic. What else do you need? Now, that struck me as very wise, first of all. But second of all, it was also like, every time I think back on it, it pops up in my life, especially in the last few months. There's another layer underneath that's like, oh, that's what he meant, and that's what he meant. Because remember, this is spoken from the perspective of someone who's 71 years old.
Sure.
Right? Who's been through what I've been through already, and then plus, another almost, 35 more years on top of that, right? It's a lot of life. It's a lot of shit that I'm going through right now that he knows, and he also knows what it looks like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, and so that's a hell of a voice to have in your mind, right? And yeah, it's just every time I think about it, it's like, well, I get up in the morning because I want to set a good example for my kids. It's like, oh, that's he meant that as well, right? Or I love my wife so much, I want to give her the life that she deserves. Like that, well, there isn't, and that was also embedded in what he said, right? It was a very, it was like 10 seconds, right? But there was so much wisdom and depth to that. And I suppose as I get older, it'll still resonate with me and mean more until I've exhausted all of the wisdom that I could discover, I suppose, right? So yeah, we can look at a certain object or a book or a song and just continue to abstract deeper and deeper meaning from it, or not even deeper, but perhaps we can look at it from other angles that continue to make sense and are applicable to our lives.
Sure. And most importantly, our creation can be entirely internal or entirely about interfaces, because we can be artists trying to sculpt our own experience, or be artists trying to sculpt our interactions with other people, with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, so that's also a wonderful form of creation, which can be also a little bit less about recognition.
Yeah.
So what's wonderful here is, if we go back to the idea of a canvas or a sandbox, that we have this amazing machinery that we're not even close to scratching, the surface of its potential.
Yeah.
And the facts of our life, exactly as your father said, right? I mean, your life is sweet.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing in the bare facts of your life that should be holding you back from, spreading your wings and broadening your mind, sculpting your experience to something truly wonderful.
Yeah.
Right? You're lucky.
Yeah.
We're lucky.
Yeah.
We're privileged.
Yeah.
Praise the spaghetti monster. And so, very new agey, but to be grateful is, a very important staple of having a healthy mind.
Yeah.
Just saying, okay, I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
Like, if something bad, if I don't like my life, it's on me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not respecting this wonderful opportunity that I've been given.
Yeah.
Of course, like anything else, this is not a perfect idea because people can use it for flagellation, right? Why am I not? No, that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is really to help people realize that in the deepest sense, the world is their oyster, because the world is their mind.
Yeah.
And they own their mind in a very deep sense. And to the extent that they don't, hopefully, technology will help us all and, bring us to the point where it's that it's easier, not even easier, that it's easier to gain authorship on that. Because the problem is now, like, that the easiest thing is to get stuck. Self-pity, drug abuse, I don't know, obesity, sex, whatever, money, it doesn't matter. It's so easy to like basically crumple your mind into a point, into a singularity.
Yeah.
Become nothing.
Yeah. It's also very tempting, right?
It's also very tempting. Yeah, that's, one of the great philosophers, Freud, it took me a while to understand a later aspect in his theory. Because first he talked about like id, ego, superego. And he talked about like the force of life. But at some point he added Tantalus, like the desire to die.
Explain the whole id, ego, superego, and then.
So superego is like, your internalization of mom and dad telling you, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. It is like, there was this series, I think in the 90s, like with this guy with the people in his head talking to him, like there was this Pixar movie also.
Okay.
Like this girl who had happiness in her head and sadness in her head. So it's a little bit like that. So id is like, I see an attractive person, I want to have sex with them. I see something that looks nice, I want to eat it.
Okay. That's like the subconscious?
Sure.
Okay.
But again, that's like the very animalistic part of your mind, that's just your basic desires and wishes. And your ego is in the middle, and it's trying to mitigate these things. Like psychopathology or, not being well psychologically is going too much to one of the sides. Being overcome by your wants or being overcome by what you think you should be. So, like, according to Freud, most of us are very neurotic, right? Which basically means, that these things are hurting us and not letting us find our place in the world. So, I think this is very easy to relate to. But an idea which is again, I can understand when I first heard it was, this idea that there's also a part of us that wishes to destroy everything, that actually, wants to die. That's actually an appealing thing for us. Like we talk about cliches in American media, like that always it ends up that, the villain is the brother, the whatever father of the protagonist, blah, blah, blah. So another idea that's very common is that the villain wants to destroy everything.
Yeah.
And, you sometimes look at that and you say, like, what the fuck? Why does he want to do that?
That's the Cain and Abel myth, right? Or
why?
Well,
that's jealousy.
But he takes revenge against God, the creator of all reality.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that interpretation. Why is that?
There is a jealousy towards, I think, but Cain is the one that kills Abel, right?
Right.
Okay. There's a jealousy towards Abel that his sacrifices get rewarded more than Cain's by God. That's the reason for Cain's jealousy, is the way that God carries favor for one over himself in this case, right? One over the other, but in this case, it's Cain. And so the anger is really aimed at God, not at Abel. And God is the one that's arranging things and making all the rules. So it's like a rebellion. It's a rebellion against reality, the way things are. Well, let's burn it, or fuck you, at least, to the way that things are structured.
Okay, that's very interesting because you can see it as fuck you, order.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, not order, but
you can
your
also
order.
see it as, trying to fulfill a wish. Like maybe if that guy is gone, now God will love me.
Mm.
So, I mean, do you have more than one kid?
Me, I have 3.
So I'm assuming at some point maybe one of them was a little bit jealous
Mm-hmm.
of the other.
Yeah.
So think about it. You can actually see like that thought. Like if that other kid who's taking away the attention and the love wasn't there, it would be only me. And it's not malevolent per se. It's just, you know,
killing someone is rather a rather malevolent thing to do.
Yes, but again, like the essential wish is I want all that attention. I want all the love. I want all the praise. Or maybe just, the lion's share of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, but still, we come back to the issue of malevolence because this is a Dostoevskian thing, right? With crime and punishment, that you can kill someone even if it's for, let's say, for the reasons of I want all the attention. You still can't look at yourself in the mirror and think I'm the same person. Like you live with that guilt forever.
So in Freudian thought, like the id
mm-hmm.
is not rational. It
mm-hmm.
just wants.
Yeah.
It can't do the moralizing.
Right.
Okay? That comes from the superego, and the ego has to, mitigate fines.
Mm-hmm.
And healing is about sublimation. Basically, okay, I want to kill you or fuck you, but we'll have, a passionate discussion. Or, we'll play Monopoly. I don't know.
Right.
Like a PlayStation game.
We should
Doesn't
have
matter.
A drinking game, actually.
Sure.
Play me or fuck me. Sorry, kill me or fuck me.
That's sure. That's not sublimating for sure. So in that dynamic of siblings or, craving attention
mm-hmm.
from a father figure, people in, along history have resorted to killing their, metaphorical sibling, sometimes killing the father.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't deal with the pain, right?
Yeah.
If we go back to this idea of actually being like an author of your experience and not just reacting to it,
yeah.
right? So, you could resolve this like conundrum, conflict, torture in so many ways.
Mm.
A lot of which are completely nonviolent. You could say, you know what? Okay, you can't have everything in life. I'll enjoy what I have.
Yeah.
Is that so bad?
Right.
I remember like as a kid, so this is also part of Freudian theory. Like you have these wants and you can fulfill them through fantasy, right? And I remember, say, walking back from school and imagining, that I was this second coming of Michael Jordan or whatever. And I was obsessed with the idea that I had to be the best in the fantasy. Like, for example, I look at Steph and Seth Curry.
Okay.
Right? And I'm thinking, oh man, poor Seth.
Mm.
You know, or Manning, the Manning brothers,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But that's an insane thought. Like he's been Seth, right? A starter in the NBA for almost a decade.
Right.
He's a millionaire. Like his life is just so awesome. So sure, his brother is just better than him.
Yeah. Not just him, right? But almost everyone.
Yeah, almost
everyone
like
in the league.
he's a generational
Yeah,
player,
yeah, yeah.
which has become very tough to say because there's so many. So what
No, I
does
know,
it
but-
even mean to say that somebody's a generational player?
He-
But he is, right? He's one of the greats.
Everyone knows, not everyone, but people that follow the NBA, they obviously know who Seth Curry is. And the New York Times has written articles about how well the guy shoots the ball. Like, that's how good that guy is. You know?
No, he's
Unbelievable. Yeah.
one of the greatest
Right.
shooters
And his
to
brother is
play the
like-
game.
Like 5% worse, you know? Like like let's say if Seth Curry ranks at 100%, he's 95% better than everyone else on the planet at that fucking sport.
Yeah.
And still looking up to
Yeah.
someone in the family.
So, I mean, what we'd wish for Seth and for ourselves is to say, look, good for him.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? Even I don't love him, but still,
He's
good for
amazing.
him.
Yeah.
It doesn't take anything from me because my life is awesome.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, it's because of me.
Right.
I fucked up. I have this like the best situation in the world, better than 99.999%
Yeah.
of the people.
Yeah.
Like if I don't fucking, love it, it's on me.
Okay, Mr. Right Wing. No, because that does tie into my point about, when we were talking about inequality, especially in America, and how it's getting worse. On some level, also, you have people who are, certainly by historical standards, Seth Curry likes, right? If you look at everyone else that's existed before us, we're way on the 1 percentile or whatever, Or certainly most people in America are there. And people are fucking angry. People are pissed. People are just not content, right? So there's something else going on. Now, yes, it's part of that is the monkey with the other cage has more bananas than I do, but at some point, you have enough bananas, no?
Well, so if you have an entire system that's founded on consumption,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to work.
Yeah, good point.
So, I mean, that's what I said before, and I think is a very
Well, is it founded
obvious observation.
Is it
this
founded on-
model of growth
on?
is not sustainable? Okay, consumption is not a sustainable notion.
Mm-hmm.
Americans weighing 300 pounds is not a sustainable way
Yeah.
of life. Okay? So if you're happy with your body, with what you eat, with your position in life, again, it doesn't mean, to hide under a rock. Sure, spread your wings.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to fly as high, and that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, again, as I said before, learning how to fail, learning how to succeed, learning how to be happy, learning how to be angry, learning how to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Like we're in many regards losing touch with our basic humanity. A trivial example, phone calls, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting to be old as fuck. And yet, like if somebody out of the blue just calls me on the phone, I'm like, what the hell, dude? you just violated me. I was triggered. What the fuck? You know? And
Triggered.
and and what's this? A little bit of human interaction that you can't pace entirely.
Right. No, it's all.
Is that too much for you?
It's also funny because this happens to all of us, yeah. But it's what just happened to you was a mini miracle, right? If you rewind the clock back 100 years ago, and someone says, "What? What?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, you could do what?
Yeah.
You could pick up some piece of plastic box and you could talk to someone.
Amos Oz has a book, Story of Light and Darkness, I think it is in English, where he describes how, his family got together once every couple of months and called their relatives in Europe. And it was very expensive, so they maybe could speak for 30 seconds and then they would shout like, "How are you? Fine. How are you? Fine." And everybody would be, tickled pink. Wow. We heard their voice. And now oh, and for me, like, fine, a voice call. Okay. I don't like that. But if you're going to video call me, like I actually get into fights with my partner on this.
No
It's
way.
like she's having a video chat with somebody and she's like, "Say hi." And I'm like, "How did you do that to me? you violated my personal sacred space. What the fuck?" And
oh God.
look, it's pitiable. I don't know. It's very interesting to see where this goes. Like, if you think about this in terms of the metaverse, like, is that actually going to be a thing? By the way, not as conceived by Zuckerberg, but yeah, it's probably going to be a thing. What does that mean? Like, will it actually... Did you see Wall-E?
No.
Awesome movie. So it depicts a future of humanity in which, like, people actually, are these fat fucks reclining on a chair with something like virtual reality or whatever. Like, all their wants are catered to them by machines. So are we gonna become like those fat fucks who, why do they even exist? Or actually will this allow us to, I don't know if I want to use the word transcend, but, make much more of ourselves than our bodily limitations, right? Because, okay, you and me, we seem, from what I see, pretty healthy. Our body is functioning fine, we're fit and all that. But some people aren't, right?
Okay.
Maybe, they're paralyzed, they're sick, they're whatever. So should their happiness be contingent on, their ability to move their body? Like, fundamentally, when I think about it, it feels to me, no, it should be about what they can do with their mind. So maybe it's a good thing if we'll be able to neglect our body in many ways. So you can see this going awfully wrong, and you can see this as an amazing opportunity. And I don't think either is true. And that's not to say that the truth is somewhere in the middle, but rather that this is the scope of possibility
Mm.
that this so-called metaverse can open for us, and we can either turn everything to shit or to gold. And what I think will happen is, some people will manage to do this, some people will manage to do that, and most of us will be sort of ho hum in the middle.
Mm.
And this is what I think that our culture should do. It's broaden, you know, uh, possibilities for us to create and
Well,
abuse.
well, it's also, in some sense, we already live in that kind of reality. Like, okay, so we're not all wearing goggles and viewing something else that's right in front of us, but the fact that you and I are sitting together in this room that's owned by
Sure.
Google, and you have a name, all this stuff is made up, right? It's some
Sure. And,
movie.
and then we're sitting and like making, spewing air
Yeah,
out of our mouths that propagates
yeah,
and, causes our membranes to vibrate.
yeah.
What the fuck?
But
Sure.
it's still a compelling story to believe in and then act out, right? And so you live your life according to this story that sort of it's negotiated between all of us, and we all accept. And I live mine the same way. Um. So yeah, we do sort of already live in the metaverse.
Okay. So remember, I keep on saying um, experience realism,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, because this is what I think the essence of existing is, the only question is, does a certain situation benefit, like expanding your experience and cultivating it, or does it make things worse, like drive you under the rock into suffering,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
into ho hum?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just think it's an opportunity that can give us more authorship on our experience. As always, it's a problem because it can be abused by fucking corporations, and all that. I still think the opportunity is there, and at least a select few will use it.
Yeah.
And the important sense of democracy, and like this is what I think, my work is, what I, strive towards,
Mm-hmm.
is making this more of a democratic thing. So, actually developing the tech to give people more authorship over their lives. Okay. And the only way is through, understanding the brain and being able to control it and manipulate it. And that's equality. Like giving you the chance to be able to gain authorship over your experience. That's equal opportunity. Because, like, if you're a fucking boy slave in a yard in India, chained to a post and, like, I don't know, cutting stuff up, yeah, okay, I don't know. The odds of you, like, spreading your wings
Right.
and
Very
not so good, right?
Yeah.
And perhaps if you're a trust fund kid, also, I don't know, maybe it's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're funneled to the extent that it's really hard to break the mold.
Yeah.
So I really wish,
Or if you're like a monarch.
sure, I really wish that our society would organize and gel
Mm-hmm.
around this idea of giving people the opportunity to have authorship over their experience. Okay? And it's a feasible dream. That's what's so great about it.
Mm.
Because actually, like, mechanically speaking, we're going to be there in 20, 30 years. Like, we're going to have fusion, energy, problem solved, right? We will be able to engineer the climate, do whatever. Robotics is going to reach the stage where nobody's going to have to do menial jobs anymore. The cake will be large enough to ensure that everybody has a good basic life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Wow, that's super optimistic.
no.
Okay.
The fact that we'll have the tech to enable this
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we won't have like 7 people living in towers and all of us, working in mines just because they get a kick out of it. That's the thing. But at least, okay, it will become feasible. If you look at the democracy in Athens, right, which, was one of the pinnacles of our culture on the face of it, the ratio between citizens and slaves was 1 to 10, I think. And this
Oh,
is
wow.
and this is without taking into account like women who weren't either or were slaves as well, depending on your perspective.
Okay.
We actually feasibly within 20, 30 years can reach the point where we can secure a good basic physical existence for everybody on the face of the planet. We can't as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are floods, right? And tens of thousands of people die. But we'll be able to stop that, right? And at the moment, somebody's going to clean your house, and if you make enough money, it's not going to be you. It's just what it is, and somebody has to take the trash out, right? And this is, of course, under the assumption that robots will be able to do that and won't become, conscious, which is what I think, but, some people think otherwise. If it won't be the case, if indeed robots sophisticated enough for doing all of this will become conscious, then, okay, it's the same old, same old. We'll have this happy life at the expense of the poor robots. Maybe then they'll revolt, whatever. Perpetuates the same old story. Like, maybe it's a spiral, but hopefully I'm right. And yeah, you can build intelligent robots that are not conscious. And if that will be the case, then we will have the wherewithal to actually go for it in terms of our social structures for the first time in existence on the face of the earth.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
It's fucking amazing. It's so exciting. No, really, because
yeah,
sure, they've been saying this for about 100 years since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
But like, I think we're actually 20, 30 years from that.
Okay, so the pessimistic take on this would be the things that we would argue about would become so trivial. Because if our basic welfare is secured and we're guaranteed long, healthy lives, what else is there to discuss? You know what I mean? Like, everyone is rich and healthy and safe.
Sure. So,
right? Wait, no, hold on a second. What is the difference then between, I don't know, let's say men and women? Again, if everyone is healthy, rich, safe, you know.
Yeah, but you'll also be able to change your sex as you wish, because our level of genetic manipulation will allow for that. You'll just edit your cells
Hmm.
and become a male for a while, a female for a while, as you wish.
That's fucking crazy.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Wouldn't you want to know?
It's too much for one life.
No, I'd love to know. Obviously,
Which part of a woman's life would you like to know?
everything.
Yeah, everything, exactly. But you can't. What are you gonna edit yourself to be a teenage girl, and then all of a sudden you're gonna edit yourself to be a grandmother?
Okay,
Like,
now
you can't pick and choose. Like,
Sure.
I mean, maybe you can one day.
didn't. I can't think of a mechanism that would allow for that. But yeah, obviously, I'm very curious to see how it feels.
Mm.
Like, if I could die and, get to live again after that, I'd be very curious to see what it feels like and like have horrible things happen to me. Not because I want horrible things to happen to me, because I really am curious and would like to understand the scope of possible experience.
It really would be a death and a rebirth if you edited yourself to the other sex. Because look, fundamentally, men and women don't have the same thoughts, right? We have we share many thoughts, but there's stuff that women think about that just make no sense to us.
Fine. So let's play with this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that we could grow and evolve our brains whilst being alive in our body.
Okay.
Okay? By definition,
Mm-hmm.
you would cease being yourself.
Right.
Would you do it?
I think my first instinct would be to say yes.
My first instinct and my second and my last would be fuck yeah. I mean,
No, but you've definitely thought this through before. I've never contemplated this question.
so, well, it really depends on what the constraints would be.
Okay.
No. In the sense that, so look, plastic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a much smaller modification of your body than changing your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And look what people do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we from the side at times can look at it and say, like, oh man, what? Why? Like, how is this even ethical for somebody to like?
Yeah. But I suppose
the desire would be there for a lot of people, for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay? Even if it's not good for them, right? Mm-hmm. But the whole idea is that, if you could just grow your brain, it would grow into like, epileptic centers. There has to be engineering behind it that would make it into viable structures that actually, work well with the rest of your brain structure. Okay. Which means,
so you want...
okay, we're going to have the knowledge how to, at least to some extent, make it work. And yeah, I'd fucking love it.
So you want the cocaine without the come down, I guess. That's...
No. Look, okay? I really think
I've never had cocaine, by the way, but I'm just guessing.
It's not that bad. We have, I believe, because I can't know, a much richer mental life than a bug. Okay? But we haven't maximized the potential of neural structures.
Yeah.
Okay? Doesn't, I want to fucking experience that.
Yeah.
I'm a bug, in the grand scheme of things. I don't. If somebody could say, okay, you can be an elephant, you could be a human, you can be the fucking brainiac, whatever, blah blah blah. I want to fucking experience that. That's a different kind of growth, which we actually enjoyed growing up to a certain extent. And sure, I think I would love that.
Fair enough. That's a good one.
I mean, either that or I've lived enough, I had a good life. Bye. Either or.
What do you mean that you take this thing, it grows your brain, and
no, but no, I mean, like, okay, our normal course of life, we grow old and we die, which means, like, if we've, we're lucky enough, we reach the point where we said we had a good life. It's enough. Bye-bye. Okay? Now, the only scenario in which I'd say, okay, I want to continue is where I can fully rejuvenate. Not in the sense of doing it again, but actually grow. Okay? Now, if we don't change our potential, the only way we can grow is like rewind to becoming like, I don't know, a senseless toddler or a hormone-controlled teenager or whatever, and do it again, maybe differently. Yeah, okay, fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about radically different, about actually, going on that superhighway, that warp light space travel, mental space travel. Yeah, that's an amazing thing to contemplate.
There have been people among us that have gone on somewhat of that journey.
How so?
You take, like, I don't know, an Einstein or something, right? Or an Oppenheimer. They just...
Yeah, no.
Who the fuck can understand these people?
Yeah, no. I think that's overstating the issue. Like, sure, that's, them, us.
Yeah.
Fine, but it's still within the scope of being human. I'm actually, in this scenario, it's transcending, outgrowing, like bug to human. Yeah. I'm not a bug compared to Einstein.
I see.
He's so much smarter than me for sure. But, we could have dinner and have a discussion just fine. I can't have dinner with a bug. I'm not like, okay, bug, let's have a few drinks and go to bed and it will be an awesome weekend,
Right.
In Tijuana or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. No.
Okay.
So yeah, something entirely new. As somebody who's intrigued by the workings of the mind and the potential and mental scapes and realms of ideas, that's super exciting to me.
All right, so I want to close with this. So I find this interesting about scientific types, right? Is that they study, science, which is, okay, you likened it a little bit like 2 hours ago to like witchcraft, right? Essentially, it's like the same, more or less. It's a marginally better explanation of what the fuck's going on. But it's still marginally better, right? Like, it's improving our understanding of things. But hold on a second. And it's devoting your entire life to understanding, like, micro realities, like the way the actual whole movie works, right? Which is pretty damn close to metaphysics, And think about it, like, you're trying to find out the laws of, let's say, the human psyche, but the universe, whatever, right? That's essentially what science is. And yet, so many scientific types are have a much higher propensity to be atheists than the general population, which is so interesting. Like, I find that interesting that, like, essentially it's the same question, Like, how does it all ultimately work? And you guys devote way more time than any of the rest of us do to trying to figure exactly how the mechanisms by which that whole thing works. And yet the answer you guys generally, or more often come up with is it's all meaningless and random and chaotic. And
I don't know what to say about that, because from my perspective, it just sits better with the facts,
mm,
and um, the more you think about it, and look, when I just started going to university, I like spent, I studied philosophy and psychology, and I spent like the first 2-3 years of philosophy, just reading about what philosophers had to say about God.
mm,
And for the life of me, if I try to retrace my thought process, like, what was I thinking about? Why was this idea interesting to me? Like, why did I care if there's an afterlife?
mm,
Like, and I really think, again, going back to Freud, where, turning to God is externalizing your relationship with your father or with authority figures,
mm.
and this internalization of them, the so-called superego, and I mean, it's so wonderful having this all-knowing external force saying, you're great, you'll be great, everything is good, don't be afraid.
Mm.
Yeah. So of course I want that, and I want to do a lot of coke, and I want to, do fuck whores, whatever. Sure, that's and eat pizza. Fine. It's as profound as that. It's just our constitution, our makeup, emotionally, cognitively, mentally. Okay, sure, and I understand that, and I respect that, and it doesn't, despair me, or make me think that existence is meaningless or unfair. Existence is essentially what I make out of it. Now, why is that idea so great? Because you don't need a God. You can become one.
Right. That's the whole existentialist line of thought.
And,
Thought, I think.
and various incarnations of these types of ideas. And I like this game so much more. No priests fucking little boys, no levying of taxes. You don't have to slaughter sheep, and if you do, you can eat them yourself. Fun.
We could go on for another 3 hours, I think. But I'm tired. Father of 3 young kids. Sorry, man.
Sure, if we continue, it's going to become too much of a good thing, right? So, yeah, let's call it a night.
All right, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for giving me the chance.
Cheers, man.